Hey everyone, welcome to another installment of Harry Potter Theory. In this video, we're going to be discussing one of the greatest men, or rather half-giants, in the Harry Potter series. I am of course talking about Rubeus Hagrid, Hogwarts gamekeeper, lover of all magical creatures, and the man that maybe cared about Harry more than anyone. Rubeus Hagrid was born in the year 1928 to father Mr. Hagrid and a giantess by the name of Fridwulfa. Hagrid gets his immense size from his mother's side, as Hagrid's father was just a regular-sized man. However, despite Hagrid towering in at a whopping 11.5 feet tall, he is considered tiny by giant standards. His mother left him and his father while he was still quite young, returning to the giant colony from which she came. This left Hagrid's father to raise him alone. My dad was broken-hearted when she went. Tiny little bloke, my dad was. By the time I was 6, I could lift him up and put him on top of the dresser if he annoyed me. Used to make him laugh. Very little is known about Hagrid's formative years, or parents, but his father certainly raised him well, as in spite of his giant size, Hagrid was a caring, attentive softie who cared immensely for those that were close to him. Hagrid began attending Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry in the year 1940, and was sorted into Gryffindor House, starting just 2 years after Voldemort himself. Hagrid was a promising young wizard, but did have a habit of getting in trouble which almost always stemmed or pertained to magical creatures in some way. Among other things, it has been speculated that Hagrid did things like raise werewolf cubs under his bed and sneak off to the Forbidden Forest to wrestle trolls. At least, that's what he was accused of. However, what would become Hagrid's biggest mistake was acquiring a new and dangerous pet, an acromantula by the name of Aragog. You see, in the time that Hagrid attended Hogwarts, the school was in a bit of a crazy state. Students were mysteriously being petrified on a consistent basis, and no one knew what was happening or why it was happening. It's later revealed that the atrocities occurring at the school were the result of a young Tom Riddle who had opened up the Chamber of Secrets and released the fabled basilisk within. When a student was eventually killed, Moaning Myrtle, a witch hunt began to figure out who exactly was responsible for the crimes. Riddle, who was concerned that the school would be closed, then threw Hagrid under the bus and framed him, explaining that the attacks were the doing of Hagrid's acromantula, Aragog. Unfortunately for Hagrid, he didn't have much of a chance to defend himself. This meant that his wand was snapped and he was expelled from the school. Things weren't going well for Hagrid. However, the silver lining is that he was trained as gamekeeper of Hogwarts and allowed to live on the school grounds, at the request of Albus Dumbledore. The headmaster of Hogwarts at the time, Armando Dippet, strongly believed that Hagrid's pet was responsible, which meant that Hagrid's expulsion was likely not going to be reversed. However, given that Hagrid's alleged crimes were responsible for the death of a student, it sort of feels like he got off easy. Why wasn't he punished more severely? There are a few reasons for why Hagrid was never held to the full extent of his crimes. First of all, no one believed that Hagrid had any sort of ill intent. Though everyone felt that he was guilty, no one believed he did any of it intentionally, which exonerated him to some extent. Secondly, Dumbledore heavily vouched for Hagrid and knew that he was a kind soul that needed a second chance. Despite Dumbledore not yet being headmaster, he still had some sway at the school, and was able to secure the posting of gamekeeper for Hagrid. What was most interesting about Hagrid's expulsion, however, was everyone's blind ignorance with regards to the true culprit, the basilisk living inside the Chamber of Secrets, a chamber that existed within the very walls of Hogwarts. The reason that no one ever considered it as an option was that at that point, the existence of the chamber was either entirely unknown or thought to be something that only existed in fanciful legend. It was the subject of fable, a room made by the maniacal, muggle-hating founder, Salazar Slytherin. But those who knew of it never took it seriously. After Book 2, the existence of the chamber becomes more common knowledge, and Hagrid is finally properly exonerated for his crimes. This allows Hagrid to become a professor, at which point he's allowed to perform magic again. This is explained by J.K. Rowling. He's been allowed to do magic openly ever since he became a teacher. But because he was never fully trained, his magic is never going to be what it should be. He's always going to be a bit inept. Despite his 50-year punishment for a crime that he didn't commit, Hagrid certainly took it all in stride. He never allowed his unfair punishment to make him bitter or angry. Hagrid is one of the most wholesome characters in the entire Harry Potter universe, and it's just too bad he was treated so poorly. And that's it for this video. You knew that Hagrid was expelled, but did you know all of the ins and outs? How should Hagrid be rewarded for 50 years of false punishment? Let me know down in the comment section below. Until next time, you're a wizard, Harry.